If you have any questions throughout the training, just put them in the chat, and then we will compile a list and send it out to everyone. All right, so we're going to talk about the WIOA Youth RFP today. First, I'm going to go over the process of how we do the RFPs. So first, the board votes to release an RFP. So we release the RFP with an opening and closing date, and then the proposals are submitted before the RFP closes. Once the RFP closes, you can't, no more proposals can be submitted unless a new RFP is opened by the board. So they are submitted online, and we've had good success with that so far. The third thing that happens is each proposal is graded by 3 separate reviewers up here at Workforce Development. So me and some of my other colleagues all review them and we grade them. Then if the proposals pass the initial review, they're presented to the board. So we review them to make sure they are following all of the rules and the policies that are in the RFP. So then the local board can review the proposals and ask any of the proposers any questions, and they can also request changes to the proposals. So if they would prefer that a provider serves different counties than maybe what they said, or that their budget's too high or anything like that, they can request some of those changes. And then once the board votes to fully fund the proposer for whatever amount that they've negotiated, then we work with the proposer to complete the contract based on WIOA policies. So we make sure that there are no costs that aren't allowed or anything like that. Make sure that everything's good, and then the contract can be sent through. And then once we have the contract in place, we will go and train each provider and provide any technical assistance when necessary. And then we also do desk audits and monitor to make sure they are in compliance and they are meeting their performance standards. So I'm going to go through what all the RFPs said. We're going to first go through the WIOA overview. So the purpose of WIOA is to improve employment, retention, earnings, and credential attainment. And the focus of this youth RFP is at least 75% of the funds must be spent on out-of-school youth, ages 16 to 24. So there's a huge emphasis on out-of-school youth versus in-school. And then at least 20% of the youth funds are used on paid and unpaid work experience. And we usually do fine on the 20% of that with our work-based learning through our payroll vendor. But if sometimes we can also use some of those the work experience funds can be put towards salaries if someone is spending time helping to get that job or whatever work-based learning experience for the participant. And our target industries are healthcare, manufacturing, construction, automotive, and professional services. Next, I'll go over the youth eligibility briefly. So for out-of-school youth, these are ages 16 to 24, and they're not attending any kind of school. They have to have at least one barrier, and those are dropout. They can be low income, can be basic skills deficient. They can be an offender, homeless, if they are or ever have been in the foster care system, pregnant or parenting, have a disability, or there's a few other qualifying barriers. And then for in-school youth, these are youth that are 16 to 21, and they can be attending any kind of school, whether it be high school or post-secondary. All in-school youth must be low income. So they have to either live in a high poverty county, or the case manager has to collect the income, and it's usually the household income, not just the youth income. So in school must be low income, and they have to have at least one barrier, and that can be a basic skills deficient, they can be an English language learner or an offender. homeless, foster care, pregnant or parenting, or have a disability or needs additional assistance. So all youth providers must complete their own eligibility verification. In the past, they have gone through the career centers to help them with this and entered their information into Alabama Works. But now all across the state have been trained to do their own eligibility and enter everything on their own, all case management in Alabama Works themselves. And so they have to make sure all of this is complete before they can offer any services to the participants. So for case management and documentation, in this RFP, we are requiring that every youth provider must have at least one full-time case manager. We've just had issues in the past where there might be a couple of part-time case managers, and all those part-time people don't seem to create one full-time person who is devoted to this. WIOA is difficult. There's a lot of different policies, and learning our case management system and all of that can be difficult. So it's good to have one full-time person who is devoted to it, and so they meet the performance that's required for this grant. And then they also need for the entry of case notes, all the documentation and the performance data in Alabama Works, and they have to also submit a monthly performance report to our youth coordinator and our youth team here. We review those to make sure what they say they are doing is actually matching what they're entering into the system. And then they also have to track all supportive services, any of their work experience, any training activities, all of that in Alabama Works. And there's different service codes and case notes and documentation where that can be uploaded to show and back up any of that information. Okay, so some of the required assessments for youth. All youth must take the TABE unless they are an in-school youth and they have a standardized test that shows their grade level. Or if they've taken the TABE within the past year, we can also accept that. But most of our participants are going to come in and have to take the reading and the math portion of the TABE. They also have their objective assessment that shows any of their employability skills, aptitudes, and interests. If they need any supportive services or if they have any developmental needs, all of that will be on the objective assessment. And then there's also the ISS, the individual service strategy that's required for each youth. And these, when they go through their assessments, that's looked at. The individual service strategy has their short-term and long-term goals. It links the services that the case manager is providing to them. All of that goes on the individual service strategy, and it's developed with the participant and the case manager together. They developed the goals and the strategies, and then they sign it and upload it into the system so that they know why they're in the program and they will participate. All right, so there are also 14 required youth program elements that, according to the law, says they have to be provided to all participants. They have to be available to all participants, and they don't have to be necessarily provided straight from the youth provider, but the youth provider has to have some kind of partnership in place for every single one of these. So if a youth needs any of these, they have to be available to it. I'll let y'all read through that list because it's long, and if you need more of a definition of each, I can get that for you, but these are the 14 youth elements. And in their proposal, they're supposed to go through and say they either provide this or how they have a partnership in place to be able to provide it. Work readiness and employability skills training is also a requirement in the RFP. They've got to explain how they're going to help the participants with their appearance or dress, or teaching them how to be punctual for a job or become dependable, time management. All of these are parts of usually a program that a youth provider has in place or has purchased with the contract to walk them through and help them with their work readiness. And then we have performance goals. These are negotiated every year with the feds. And for this year, we have employment and education In the second quarter after exit is 74%. The fourth quarter after exit is 73.6%. Median earnings are 3,700. The credential rate is 53%, and measurable skills gains are 53.5%. And we have a team that goes through and looks at the performance, and they run reports to make sure that everybody is where they're supposed to be. If we start to see a provider that is not getting very close to their goals, then we may have to talk to them, do technical assistance, we'll perform a more in-depth desk audit, and sometimes it requires us to put them on probation, and then they have to try to fix the situation or else that they could lose their funding. So these are the goals that they are required to put in their proposal and in their contract, and that's what they're supposed to try to do. All right, so for reporting and compliance, they have to all meet the state and federal WIOA reporting guidelines. They have to adhere to a non-discrimination and equal opportunity laws. They have to maintain accurate fiscal and administrative records for monitoring and audits. And they have to follow the cost allocation and allowable cost guidelines. So when they have their contract, they can also get a copy of our fiscal procedures that explains all of this to them. So these are some of the recommendations from us. This was not a requirement in the RFP, but it's some that we have talked amongst ourselves here at Workforce Development, and from experience of working with these youth providers for several years, we would recommend that for all new providers that are new to WIOA, like this is their first time ever getting a youth contract or being a youth provider, or if they have all new staff, because sometimes in these programs the turnover can be high and there's brand new staff who don't understand WIOA. They may need a little extra time to learn WIOA. We recommend that the board, if they want to fund the program, to maybe limit the area they can serve to 1 or 2 or 3 counties, something small, to allow them to gain the knowledge and experience, and then they could grow for like the next year. And then maybe limit the amount of participants they can serve, maybe not tell them they can serve 250 if they're brand new, maybe 20, just so that they can get used to the process and having to do the eligibility and the case management and all of that. And then also limiting the budget that and the amount of staff that they can have, because the salaries in some of the contracts can be quite a chunk of the actual contract. So limiting the amount of staff can help hopefully not waste as much money if we can get around that. For other WIOA programs like OJT, which is on the job training, and for the ETPL, which is the eligible training provider list, we require a year of performance before they can be awarded a contract. So we were thinking maybe some of the youth providers can have a year to do just a small amount to show performance and gain experience, and then possibly be awarded a larger contract in the future. So if there are any questions, we have a few minutes. Let me see. I'm going to look in the chat. Let's see. Can we get a copy of these slides? Yes, I will get with Joel and Ann and they'll send those out. Except the compliance monitoring team. We have a whole monitoring section, and they do data validation, I believe, every quarter. They take a sample and they do data validation every quarter to make sure that we're around where we should be. And if there are any red flags, we dive in deeper. Proposers be asked to present in front of the local board. They will be open for questions. Our board staff and our director and all talked, and we're going to allow y'all to review the proposals too beforehand, and then you can ask them any questions that you need to ask. Sometimes when we allow them to present, it gets very lengthy, even when we try to cut them off. So the proposals will be provided to you and you can ask any questions you want of them. See, does TABE test provide accommodations with individuals with disabilities? Yes, and if they have an assessment from like ADRS, those can be used too in place of TABE. So if they already have that, they don't have to take the TABE. Let's see, thanks for the questions. Let's see. How will the 80% of planned enrollment be measured? There will be they'll have a goal for the amount of participants they plan to serve in their contract. And it's also broken down by quarter. So by this date, you should have this many participants. And by this date, you should have this many participants. So we can kind of monitor that as we go and not have to wait to the very end. Is the RFP currently available now for our review? The actual RFP has been taken down, has closed. Yes, they've all closed. And so we've just received their proposal. So I don't know if they can review
The
We'll bring it
RFP
up.
is still posted online,
Okay.
up under each area. If you go to the procurement tab for your area, you can find the RFP that has recently closed and all previous RFPs that have closed in the past.
Can applicants attend the WIOA meeting?
It's open to the public.
It's open to the public. And then is there a target budget or is funding based on RFP responses? The funding has already been determined for each area, and the youth providers have to be voted on based on this certain budget. So in many areas, the proposals we've received are far beyond the budget that we actually have in the area. So that's where the negotiating and then seeing which one is maybe the best fit for your area or for your counties, that's where you kind of have to negotiate. And then not everyone will be awarded a contract just because they put in a proposal. Yes. So you have to be selective, and that's why we allow for questions and reviewing, and that's why they get graded, because you do have to kind of weed some people out. Any other questions? All right. Well, if you have any other questions, just email us. And then I will get these slides out to Ann and Joel, and they'll send them out to you. And then we will post this on our YouTube page, and the link to that will probably all be sent in one big email. So thank you for your time, and y'all have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you.